projection. It means that if I have had a bad interaction with a certain authority figure, that I may sometimes unconsciously act out against the next authority figure. Example, if I've had a bad first marriage and it was horrible, and I get married again, I might make the next one pay for what that one did. They may be completely different. But because they walk in the same shoes, I might transfer all the blame and all the guilt and project and act out against the new authority what happened with the last one. And that's what hurt a lot of people in marriages, because we try to make our new spouse pay for the deeds of the last spouse. God could have given you the perfect spouse, the perfect mate, but you're stuck on what the last one did and won't let them live in the newfound beautiful freedom of marriage. Sometimes our kids, because of how we let them respond to us as an authority, they take that baggage. See, one day we want our kids to have their own with God, right? I mean, right now they come because we say go to church. But one day it is our hope and dream that our children will have their own relationship with God. Am I right about that one? However, if we let them form a bad image on what it is to respond to respect and reverence authority by the way they respond to us, they will take that same baggage and walk into the throne room and meet rejection. Because guess what? God is not going to change who he is to embrace the next generation. I'm going to say it again. God is not going to change who he is just to embrace the next generation. God has come as close to mankind as he's going to come in the body of Jesus Christ. That's as close as he's going to come. You cannot ask God to do any more than that, than to have given his only begotten son. God demands that we begin to groom them to know how to respond to him. This next generation is something altogether different. They are, I might say, they are some of the most irreverent, disrespectful bunch of young people that has ever been on the face of the earth. And guess what? Did you know that years ago in high school, do you know what the number one problem was? Can you guess what what they had meetings over, what they called mom and dad about and said, hey, we got to have a council session. You know what it was? It was chewing bubble gum in the classroom. I know what you're thinking, bad home raising, right? The nerve of her to be in science class chewing some Bazooka Joe, right? Lost her mind. What was she thinking? That was the worst. Or get this one, and I know you got to hold on to your seats. You ready? Get this one. Button in line at the water fountain. Just couldn't wait your turn. Just had to get in line. Those were some of the worst situations that used to exist in the school system. You and I know it's a long ways from that now, isn't it right? Amen. It is a long ways from that. I wish it was just chewing gum in science class. I buy the gum. That's an easy one. That's an easy one. But that's not it. This generation that our youth are going to have to win are completely different. They're completely other than. And we must take the time to groom them, because one day they're going to have to own what they have with God. They cannot ride our coattails forever. One day they have to own a self-initiated relationship with God. And God is not going to change who he is just to embrace our babies. He's not going to do it. He's God. He loves them. He loves them. But if we don't teach them and groom them on how to respond to authority by the way we let them respond to us, it's going to be a problem. Because he's not going to bring down his standards to raise up a nation. I'm going to say it again. He's not going to bring down his standards to raise up a nation. He is God and will not be anything but God at all times. And for that we say thank God. Amen. Amen. Now, how do we guard against these things? What things do we need to look at? There are 4 things I'm going to give you that you need to look at, that we need to look at, and make sure that we keep our kids in line so that when it comes time for them to have their one-on-one with God, they don't bring baggage into the relationship. Say baggage. That's all that stuff that did not get solved when we had them. That's all that stuff that did not get straightened out when we had a shot at them. And now the world has to put up with it. God is saying, do it right now. And when it comes, and then when I want to groom them and raise them up, I don't have to walk through all the stuff that you didn't finish talking about. Number one, we got to let them know that God does not have our weaknesses. God cannot be manipulated. He cannot be manipulated. God does not have our weaknesses. He cannot be played with. He cannot be manipulated. You cannot give God the silent treatment. Because guess what? Your heart is still talking, and he hears your heart too. Your mouth may be, but your heart is saying the whole conversation. You can't give God the silent treatment. God cannot be manipulated. I remember, I don't know if it was Pastor Bob or Pastor BG preaching one day, and because sometimes our kids think, yeah, but it's just a little bit of sin, just a little bit. Hey, guess what? God is holy. And the word holy means completely set apart for the highest purpose possible. And sin is offensive to God. They gave the story about, and I just call it the poop story. Say poop story. The poop story. Said that a woman had a son that just wouldn't do right. Just wouldn't do right. I don't know what was wrong with that boy. And she told him time and time again, look, you just can't do those things. And he would always say, oh, Mom, it's just a little bit. Say just a little bit. And she said, you can't be out doing this and doing that and going here and going there. And he said, oh, it's just, say just a little bit. Just a little bit. So then she said, I'm going to teach this boy a lesson. I'm going to make his favorite brownies. I'm going to spice it up some. So she goes to the backyard. She takes a spoon and she gets some dog poop. Say just a little bit. Just a little bit. Takes it in the house. Puts it in the batter, stirs it up. She got her eggs and the vanilla and all that. I know, just hold on now. And all those things that she need and whatnot, and she get it all mixed up and real good and got the house smelling all good and put it in the oven and she bakes it, takes it out, plops it down for her son and says, hey, there you go. He says, Mom, I don't want to eat that. She said, well, why not? It's got some of Rex's poop in there. And she said, oh, son, say it with me. It's just a little bit. Does it matter if it's just a little bit? The same way that story, you find that offensive, is how God responds to sin. Even just, say it with me, a little bit. Because God is holy. And he will not be anything but holy. God is holy, will not be anything but holy. Even a little bit can keep you out of heaven. Just a little bit. Number two, God has no favorites. Isn't that hard to believe? Because sometimes we say, well, you know what? Yeah, but that's daddy's baby. He looked just like his mama. Look at him. That's my favorite son, and that's my favorite child. And they know that because they're favorite, that they can get away with things that other ones can't. They know that they can steal a cookie, have the crumbs on their face, and tell you, I didn't do it. And you would say, well, whatever you didn't do, don't do it again. And that's it. But guess what? But when it comes to God, see, I tell my wife, I said, Tiffany, if it's one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to let my kids grow up in our house and leave our house thinking that the world will treat them the way we do. Because that's, you know what? Because if I've done that, I have failed to prepare them for the real world. The real world is going to hold you accountable. The real world might not give you 2, 3, and 4 chances. The real world would demand more of you, and every time. The real world is a whole together different ball game than mama and daddy's house. And if I don't get you ready for it, you'll be at my door saying, who was that at 3 in the morning? That's Justin. I don't want that to happen. Because when you move out, I want to eat at your house. I don't want you at mine. Is that right? I want to know that I've done a good job when I pull up in